What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. Welcome to Pretty Dece, your daily entertainment and pop culture show. Let's dive into the world of competitive gaming today. Let's talk about the biggest announcement in competitive gaming that happened this week, and that is the main event games were announced for EVO 2018. EVO is, of course, the biggest fighting game tournament that happens yearly. It's basically the Super Bowl of fighting games. And the games that make it into the main stage and into EVO are supposedly the biggest fighting games of the year, the stuff that all of the pros are focusing on. I'm certainly not a fighting game pro, but I really enjoy fighting games. And when a new fighting game comes out, I like to dabble into it. I like to understand what it has going on, why people are interested in it. And it's a very fun thing to watch. People who are really, really good at fighting games, to watch them perform. So EVO every year is a really interesting event to keep track of, even if, it's not a scene that I'm necessarily a part of very, very heavily. So I always look for the games as they get announced, and I definitely want to know what games are big, what games people are talking about, what games are being played. So the games as announced this year, of course, right on the top, Street Fighter V. The fighting game community and competitive fighting games have always revolved around Street Fighter. It's always been a huge game. So, of course, the newest iteration of Street Fighter will always be there on the list. Next up, we have Tekken 7. Tekken's a super, super fun game. I really like the Tekken series. It plays a lot differently than some other fighting games. A lot of focus is on combos. But Tekken 7 was fun because, for me personally, because of all the customization options, and even had some stuff from New Japan Pro Wrestling thrown in, which I really liked. From there, we get into some other interesting things. Injustice 2 is there. Sometimes the NetherRealms created fighting games are maybe not the most competitive. Like, if people are going to be super competitive in games, they'll focus on something like Street Fighter. But I definitely like the games that come from the Mortal Kombat studio a whole lot. In fact, they're probably some of my favorite games. And Injustice 2 is a really, really great game with a great story mode. So it's cool to see people are now, flocking to that from a competitive standpoint as well. Moving on from Injustice 2, we get in some really crazy games, all from Arc System Works. First of all, Guilty Gear Xrd Revision 3. Then BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, which isn't even out yet. And finally, Dragon Ball FighterZ, which came out just recently. These are all in the anime fighters category, which isn't just a derogatory term for fighting games. It is a category of fighting game that seems to have developed within the last several years. And it's fast-paced, it's very combo-focused, and requires, very dexterous control to operate these fighting games. Super interesting, we're getting 3 games from one company, and very interesting that BlazBlue is included in that list, because, like I said, it's not even out yet. It will only have been out for about 2 months by the time EVO rolls around in August. So a lot of hype, kind of pre-release for that game has people apparently very excited, and has the fighting game community very excited to put that on the list. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a game that I'm playing currently right now, playing through the story mode, and dabbling, of course, in the online modes, and I'm really, really liking it. And that game is a blast to watch with how gorgeous it is, so that'll be a really fun game to see on the EVO stage as well. Finally, rounding out the list of games, we have Super Smash Bros. Twice. So, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and Super Smash Bros. Melee are both on the EVO lineup here. And this is super interesting, one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Of course, Smash Bros. Is an extremely popular series, and people follow it very competitively. It is kind of a party game. You can get in there and button mash and have a good time. It's very different than normal fighting games in that it has maybe a lower skill kind of point where you can get in and still have fun. Craziness happens, but people do take Smash very seriously, and people are incredibly good at Super Smash Bros. The skill ceiling is incredibly high on that game as well. And in the classic Nintendo sense, just like a game like ARMS, for example, it is very approachable, but has a very, very high skill potential. The interesting thing about the Smash Bros. Community right now is that it's split apparently pretty evenly between the third and fourth games in the series. So Melee and the Smash Bros. Game for Wii U. It's interesting that they have both enough of a community that both games can make it into EVO. In a lot of cases, you could probably imagine that a series that gets split, the fan base gets split between the latest two entries, would maybe just make it fall out of contention entirely. But in this case, both are strong enough that they both make it on the list. So super, super impressive. Tons of people love to see Smash played, so I'm sure lots of people are happy that both are included. Now, finally, one thing I want to talk about is a game not included on the list, which I think is notable in its absence, and that's Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. The Marvel vs. series, the Capcom vs. series, long-running series of video games that go way back. People love the Marvel games. They have a big history in competitive fighting games, in fact. This latest entry, however, Infinite, was kind of flush with problems as it was launching. People didn't like the look of the game. People had some issues with the characters that were included. It was missing some of the fan favorites due to licensing restrictions. For example, we couldn't have any of the X-Men in the game. And, people had some problems with even down to the collector's edition of the game. They didn't like the inclusion of the stones that came with the game as little kind of tchotchkes that you could get. So lots of things going wrong in the release and marketing and all that stuff of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. But since the games came out, people seem to be generally positive about it, and it seems to be slowly finding a community amongst especially the Marvel vs. Capcom fans from previous entries in the series. So unfortunately, it didn't make the list here in EVO, and even a bigger blow to it, it didn't make the list for the Capcom Pro Tour. The company that makes the game is not even including Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite on their competitive gaming event series that they run. They're only running Street Fighter tournaments, not Marvel vs. Capcom tournaments. This game just came out towards the end of last year, and it's not making EVO, it's not even making the Capcom Pro Tour. Unfortunately, it's not looking good for the history of this game, for the duration of this game, and I really wonder what that means for the future of the Marvel vs. series. With all the trouble that this game faced, and now kind of the instant lack of support it's getting even from Capcom itself, it really makes you wonder if we're going to see another Marvel vs. Capcom game for a very, very long time. So that is the EVO lineup. It's a little bit about kind of the fighting game status right now as far as the popular fighting games go. And that's going to do it for Pretty Dece. So thank you very much for joining me. Like Pretty Dece on Facebook at facebook.com/PrettyDeceShow. Follow me on Twitter at PrettyDeceShow and visit PrettyDeceShow.com. I'll be back tomorrow for another daily episode. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, and in the Anchor app so you never miss any of the content.